jump in as well, right? I mean, it's a nice setting for that. So I'm Tom Truscari. I am longtime friends with these two gentlemen. I know Nick as well. We do things together. And Mike, by the way.
Yeah.
Hi. So we have Mike McNeeley from Index. We've got Nick. Last name very hard to pronounce. You give me. I'll butcher it.
Cucolovski.
See, I would have said I would have been Cucolovski. Okay. From Monks. I'll be seeing your boss tomorrow. It'll be interesting. And we have Mattia from Anonymized, and we have Rui from Seawire. So what we're going to talk about today, the subject matter of this is, this started with a conversation between me and Mattia about closed-loop optimization, right? And the fact that, particularly in the display world, but I think more importantly in the CTV world, because the display world is changing dramatically, meaning it's relatively shrinking, because the money is going elsewhere. It's going to CTV, it's going to commerce media, it's going to continuing to go to social, right? And now the next topic that I don't think is talked about much here in Cannes yet. It's a little bit too early for GEO, but GEO is the next search. It's going to nip at the heels of Google quite a bit, right? So that's a big deal. And marketers always want to be where they never want to be irrelevant. So they're always going to go in as early as possible, even though they might not fully understand it. So they're rushing into CTV, even though much of it is not targetable. And if it's not targetable, it's not measurable, right? And so that's closed-loop optimization. So with that, I'll just start here with this the cookie back and forth, right? I was in a chat recently. I was doing a chat with Brian Weezer on Criteo Shot, and that was terrible for Criteo actually. Even though their stock responded because cookies are still available. It was actually bad for Criteo because it would have made them move if they said we're killing cookies, it's over, and everybody just moves on. But that's not the case. So with that, I'll start with Mattia, and then I'll work it around here a little bit. Mattia, kick it off, and then I want to hear from you guys, and then Rui, because Rui's business on the SSP side. On the SSP side, we'll blend all that in, but kind of just start with closed-loop optimization, edge IDs, edge compute, etc., and break that down.
That's the right solution. I think we're talking about the problem first, which is everybody thinks addressability. We kind of save the cookie, therefore there's no problem, and we move on. But the truth is, what we've seen and people are kind of starting to talk about is that this idea of match rates going down is not going away with the cookies thing here, because what we've done is that first of all there's still measures being taken by browsers, so there's still the privacy angle hasn't finished yet. Apple announcing iOS 26, I think, which is going to kill fingerprinting and other things as it comes out in a few months. But generally, what we've done as an industry is wherever there was no signal, we replace it with probabilistic IDs, graphs, etc. Many of which rely on IP addresses, but IP addresses are widely available. What people aren't talking enough about is that IP addresses, for a technical reason, not a pricing reason, telcos are moving from IPv4 to IPv6, which is a new standard. IPv6 rotates every 48 hours, more or less. So you have an ID, which is the base of a graph, which has no lifespan. Now that's probably going to be okay for some level of targeting, but when you do measurement on a 30-day, 60-day look-back window, your ID might have changed 10 times.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that trend is just going to continue. So if you look at IPv6, it was about 20% 3 years ago. It's 50% of IP addresses today, and it's just going to go forward. It's not a political decision. It's just technically we ran out of IP addresses version 4, so we need to move on. So the base problem is that yes, we should use ID for as long as they exist, but we're not guaranteed that they will continue to exist at the same scale for much longer. So we're going to have two internets: the logged-in internet and the non-logged-in internet. And we need to solve for the non-logged-in part. Because otherwise, we're just giving everything to you know who.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because people didn't realize, even when the heyday of the third-party cookie, the half-life of a cookie was about 100 days. So that means, less than that, 30 days. Because people would change things and they would jump in from browsers, and so that means just after a very short time period, there's no targeting there. But anyway, those days are long gone. So Mike, I mean, from an SSP perspective, right? And thinking about, you know the technology well, you understand where it's going, and you guys are generally very well ahead of the game and thinking, around several corners, right? With everything that Andrew's been talking about with like sell-side, there's sell-side curation, sell-side decisioning in your terminology, which is the better terminology. That piece about this advantage of the supply side being so close to the audience, where in closed loop optimization, how are you guys thinking about that and everything that Mattia just said?
Yeah, so by the way, thank you. It's we'd like to think we're several steps ahead, but I guess we'll see if that ends up being the case or not.
Yeah.
But I completely agree. I mean, I think we're gonna have like an authenticated web and an unauthenticated web. We've been talking about this for a really long time, and the trouble is that unauthenticated web is, at least at this moment, and we'll see what happens with AI, but it is quite large. And so publishers obviously are hurting for revenue, and their vast majority of the supply that they have drives the lowest CPMs today, and needs solutions to work for the marketer as well. Like, the marketer needs to know that is an area of supply that they can buy and see results from, and then thus put more money towards it, and help our ecosystem basically keep going. So what we're thinking about with supply side decisioning is basically, for so long the value of activating media has been completely on the demand side, but the challenge is that we have QPS pipes with these DSPs, and oftentimes that can be highly constrained. Some DSPs listen to 3% of the total supply that's available, and there's only a handful that listen to over 85%. So that's obviously challenging. So how do we solve that? How do we make an improvement there? And so what we're thinking is that basically we can start to activate data, have folks train models to figure out either audience affinity or potentially performance or something else basically that's on the data set that we have when the pipe is the largest, and then basically deploy that decisioning, whether it's an audience or it's an algorithm or it's some sort of categorization or brand safety or whatever it might be, deploy it into the auction on the supply side and use that to help inform the DSP. I think maybe what kind of differentiates Index from our competitors is that we're not looking to replace the DSP. We're not looking to have everything be run through Index and have Index be the only place in town. Like, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to help the marketer's campaign perform even better with more information. Yeah. So I hope that answers the question a little bit.
Yeah, and then it's really important also on the QPS thing why DSPs need to do what they do, because if you look at the financial structure, so the variable cost, meaning the cost to run AWS and crunch numbers and do all that,
expensive.
It's like anywhere between, say, from looking at all the public DSPs, it's anywhere from 10% to 18% of net revenue. What I mean by net revenue is gross ad spend, take rate is net revenue, and then you've got cost of goods sold going to AWS. So Amazon has always been, right, your margin is my opportunity. So when Amazon looks at Trade Desk, they're like, I'm taking the money. So that's why Trade Desk, their operating profits are 13% of revenue. If they need to fix that variable cost to get more operating profit for their shareholders and take it away from Amazon, basically. So that's sort of the financial rationale there. Nick, so when you look at all this, because you see a lot of technology, right? And then even inclusive of like everything from S4S Capital that Sonia, before she invests, she's got to send it your way. You guys test it, you eat the dog food for a while and see if it's any good. What do you guys, you have a lot of clients, they spend a lot of money. You have Mighty Hive, you have Monks, there's a lot of programmatic media. And you're to some extent platform agnostic when you think about how to execute programmatic media. When you see all of this, the clients are like, I got to target. That's the whole essence of programmatic, is to target a user. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so from my perspective, you're spot on. So we see a KPI, we see an objective, and it's all about efficiency. So we're like, okay, how much I can spend and drive as much of this KPI. But I think what we're looking at is we're so far from the supply side, and we don't necessarily have a lot of visibility in what is happening upstream. So when we get to our side, we are mostly working with the buy side platforms. So we're looking into the audience, the creative, the taxonomy, where I'm going to place it, how much pacing and whatnot. But we're not looking how can we optimize upstream. And I think for us, I think the industry is actually lacking talent, is lacking resources that can help us, at least in my part of the world, to understand the supply side, how we can tweak it, how we can optimize it, that hopefully then drives this marginal, gains that we're
Right, but that's interesting because let's say between you, Linda, Sir Martin, JB,
Yes.
whoever else is here, how many meetings would have taken place here in Cannes with an index, with a Magnite, with a Programmatic, with SSPs that wouldn't have happened before?
Oh God, I mean my schedule is full with all of those guys.
You see, there we go. That's a big difference, right? Because that would not have been the case 2 years ago.
That is absolutely correct. Yeah, a few years ago it was all in the major platforms, but now we're seeing untapped potential with all of those guys that you're talking about. Why I'm here partly today is to see how we can get upstream, how we can unlock part of those learnings.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And what ties together all the dimensions is there's a lot more data on the supply side than makes it to the demand side. Right?
Yeah.
And there are cost reasons for it because you can't send everything in a bid request. But there's also this bottleneck created that if there isn't a synced ID, the DSP tends to ignore that bid request for good reasons again.
Yeah.
So the purpose here is to understand how we leverage the supply side data and measurement is key to understand how it performs, and optimization is key to literally KPIs without constraining it to those bid requests that the DSP understands as being valuable because they have an ID. So if you shrink the market to where there's an ID, you're raising prices because there's just less supply. Your publishers aren't monetizing all of their inventory.
Performance is not as good as it could be.
Exactly. Performance
Yeah.
as it could be. So that's the point of where the SSP comes in. It's not replacing the DSP. It's just saying, look, there's a lot more data we can use to reach the same goals. And from an advertising perspective, it's all about how can I get incremental audiences at a lower price because frankly there's just less bid density.
Right.
I think it goes beyond that. If you look at the DSP is a product in itself. So even if we would pass the data, I mean, we've been testing passing data in the bid requests where you have audience data or where you have categories and so on. DSPs are just not built to be on that. Like the product, the UI is not really what people are using. I mean, originally DSPs had first-party data from the advertiser, third-party data that they would just buy and plug in and everything. And essentially, the data on the publisher side is hardly ever really been monetized altogether. So, like, you have to get closer to the demand side and to buyers as an SSP to actually get that accessible through a product that was not designed for that.
I completely agree. I was just going to jump in and say the
Yeah, go
same.
ahead.
Like, it's not necessarily that all the folks don't have the data. I mean, certainly there are cases of that, but I think part of what's happening at the moment is that there's this like new set of tools, a new set of technologies that are being built to make the data available. And I think you're totally right. Where sometimes gotta support digital out of home or some other like your roadmaps as a DSP and the buy side just get so stretched, so thin that you have to go and make a huge investment to offer a platform for customers to then start mining data or to do intelligent things with it. And it just becomes a product management and engineering challenge. And it just so happens that these systems are new and they have access to all the data and you can do really cool things with them and increasingly like really crazy things with them. And that's fueling this innovation. So
Yeah, and it's interesting too because I always think about it in terms of, from the DSP's perspective, I think about it in terms of what I call the quintessential question. SSP sends bid request, DSP says, do I know this user ID, yes or no? If yes, bid, if no, don't bid. So the question is how much bidding is going on the DSP side where they're kind of fudging on that question a little bit, you know what I mean? Because it can't possibly be true that they've got a good fidelity of ID, but they need to say yes to that question as much as possible. or else no money flows. And if there's no money, there's no fees, and there's no revenue.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts? I mean, let's go. I mean, how is that even possible today? Give it relative to 6 years ago when every bid request you can legitimately answer the question because it came with a cookie.
Yeah, I'm interested in your guys' take on
And
this.
sorry, Mike, and back that up and then Rui, because on the SSP side, you can always answer the question. You see what I'm saying?
We can. I mean, we definitely maybe to step back. So the amount of supply that is available on the internet across all channels and formats today is absolutely enormous. We're seeing something like, north of 500 billion auctions a day and growing. And so, a lot of the DSP connections were first set up as like matched cookie only, and the number of like matched cookies is now we're talking like 30 to 40% of the whole internet, and you have 60 to 70% which is not cookie based or not cookie addressable. And so how do you then make that available to the DSP in terms of like giving you the best supply that you want without like that huge cloud cost to listen to it?
Yeah.
And so this is where we're kind of moving some of the decisioning upstream, and again, not replacing the downstream piece of it because that's critical, but how do you let them get a peek of the supply that's available to inform what they want to listen to so that they can drive it for their customers?
Yeah, okay. Rui?
I mean, on our end, I think you don't want to you don't necessarily want to replace the DSP because that's something that is really core as well on the marketing stack of an advertiser, right? So the idea is how can you fuel the DSP and make it more clever with additional tools or a lot more automation to actually get to the buyer what he wants and what he's trying to achieve. So ultimately, we can see a lot of patterns by listening to data points that DSPs wouldn't, and push that through deals, because through deals you have a mechanism where you can like give control to the buyer that hey, on that you can bid with less targeting on the DSP side, so that you can buy more.
Right. So is it fair to say, like, when you go to a supermarket and around the edges is all the good stuff that's healthy for you, and in the middle of the supermarket it's all the shit? Sorry, Nestle, I hope you're not here. No, but you get all the really, really bad stuff in the middle. But as Chris Kane said, feed DSPs what they eat or what they want to eat. It seems like they've been eating from the middle of the supermarket, and there's a whole ecosystem happening to give it healthier food, basically, so the campaigns perform better. And really on behalf of what the job is to satisfy the advertiser need, satisfy what they want, right? So,
Well,
and he's incredibly healthy. I've gotten healthier just knowing him.
not in the past 2 days.
Not the best 2 days.
So a couple of things have happened, right? So as IDs decline, we kind of printed off lower quality IDs just to make the machine work, and that's okay. But the other thing that's exciting that happened is that you've got solutions that aren't necessarily ID based, not just mine, but plenty first party data solution. They're closer to the source, they're closer to the publisher. The data is higher quality, frankly. Because if you look at your own profile, you're male, female, young, old, employed, unemployed, like you're everything, right? So the data is higher quality, but it has one problem: you can't measure it. So if you just use first party data alternative, you just don't know how good that data is. You got to trust, because the DSP doesn't link it to the cookie and the measurement doesn't work. So the point of closed-loop supply-side optimization is to address that issue. There's a lot of data on the supply side. It could be used, which could be good because it opens more opportunities for
Particularly in
better performance.
CCV and out of home, digital out of home.
Exactly. But then you can't measure it. And so how do we measure it? And I think that's my pet peeve is if we keep doing cookie-based last touch attribution, we know who wins. Whoever drops the cookie last, not who contributed most to the outcome. And that's normally, exactly, they all get the credit. And it's normally people who have a stable ID with very frequent use. Guess who's that, right? So you picking that measurement approach, which might be good in some cases, but it's not the only way to measure the effect of a campaign. In fact, I think you guys are doing.
Does that map with your
much more
roadmap language, what you said?
It does. I mean, a few things. So we have been working on an internal product called Audience Flow, which is part of our AI overarching system called Monks Flow. And we're essentially creating a graph of graphs. So we know that first-party data is super important. very expensive to manage if you're building especially your own graph. So, and we have to work with partners, Experian, TransUnion, LiveRamp, you name it. So what we have been doing is we are trying to control the cost as much as we can. So we match someone from a first party perspective, we put them in audiences, let's say, and then we try to find the cheapest way or the cheapest idea to find them and to serve that impression. From a measurement perspective, that's where I think things break a little bit, because we look into actions. We look into MTA, we look into MMM, we look into incrementality, but those are not person-based measurement. Those are audience-level measurement, and sometimes you lose a lot of control.
Even with a Rockerbox or a Mutinex, which is advanced, MMM, right?
I mean, there is obvious advancements that we talked about, especially now in the last year with AI and whatnot. But from a privacy perspective, you can't know that Nick got certain cookie and I clicked on an ad and I did something. It's still very somewhat aggregated and nebulous into how much we're spending and what's the reward on that.
Very interesting. By the way, when I mentioned that food analogy about a month ago, Mattia got to enjoy his first pastrami on rye at a proper New York deli. She really liked it. We went. Where did we go? We went.
I got the healthy one, which is still amazing.
Yeah.
You got the fatty one.
Yeah. Well,
What is the healthy one?
the Romanian's fattier. It's got a lot more flavor. They recommended it.
So you got half an inch of meat. So
The
Exactly.
thin one.
Yeah.
No, I think it's 1 inch instead of 3.
Oh, right, yeah.
So Rui, because we could go pastrami on rye all day. We got the right crowd for it. When you think about how you're going to, when you start, right, you start with this problem. Cookieless has this.
Yeah.
You have to figure out, how do I target without the cookies? Pretend they're already gone. And then of course along the way, you and Yana, you build a lot of other really cool stuff too, right? But it all starts with that core problem still, right? Everything else is ancillary and valuable, but it all starts with that core. And inside what you're doing, you are a DSP bidder as well.
We do have a bidder. I mean, I think for us it was important as well to really understand the dynamics and how we can. I mean, we have a bidder, we have a creative stack, but we really wanted to understand everything that was happening end to end, because that's the only way we could essentially have data to really figure out what information we can send on the supply side to get that incrementality. Because I think if you look at cookies, it's not only the availability of the cookies that is on your probe, or it might not be, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. The world is fragmented. I mean, we talked about CTV, we talked about digital out of home. You look at Safari and so on. It doesn't support cookies. If you go beyond that, actually, walled gardens don't support cookies either for measurement or anything. Right? So cookies get super tiny when you look at it, and then if you look at it per market, in the US where Apple has a big market share of it, or in the UK, you're gonna have cookies are essentially a very small sample, and everyone is trying to buy. So you really need to get that incrementality for brands to actually achieve their goals. I believe display on the open web is being flat because people have been increasing the amount of ads they can show on Chrome or overall, but mostly monetizing them on Chrome because it was not actually it was not delivering it.
Right.
So you need to really try and build something where you use the full potential and get brands in front of a user without having any tech bias. It's not like the amount of bids that you get per auction on Chrome is not because the user is better. It's because the technology has biases that pushes you towards that. Yeah. And I don't think you can go to a brand and say, hey, you should buy what I tell you because that's what my tech can do. And you should try and aim for more. And I think there, whether cookies keep going on Chrome or not is completely irrelevant. You have to aim to actually deliver the full potential of what the open web can give to brands.
Yeah.
And you don't need to actually have any piece of technology that makes it super biased towards a small subgroup of people.
Yeah, and relatively speaking, like you said, I mean, adtech, meaning money that leaves the demand side platform, is relatively small. It's $70 billion. my market model, but it's 7% of the whole. And it's relatively shrinking, like I said earlier, meaning 5 years from now, that 7% is going to be 5% because the rest is growing faster. It's not like the 70 billion isn't growing, it's just not growing anymore because it's reached maturity like any market does. But from a marketer's perspective, they're looking at the whole of it. So there is none of these problems in Mark Zuckerberg's world. It's easy to spend money there because I can target, and well, there's the grading your own homework problem still, which that's a different.
Also having 100% like deterministic supply.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Well, we're covering half of the problem here.
Go ahead, jump in.
Like, we're talking a lot about users targeting data, all very important. We're all in programmatic and adtech. We love this problem. But what about the creative?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what if you're hitting the user and the creative doesn't show up? It's shit. It's whatever. As this like pendulum is swinging back from the demand side into the sell side, how are we fundamentally addressing those foundational changes that need to happen at the same time? And are you guys thinking about the data's great, the measurement's important, but how are we making the user experience actually better? Because that's not, that's not, and I assume Rudy's going to address this, but
Yes.
you hadn't yet, so that's why I thought I'd put it
Yeah,
on there.
I think it's a great point. It's unrelated to the addressability of the cookie, but it's obviously a central piece. If you look at the winners of the digital advertising world, none of them have a 300 by 250. Like Google, Amazon, Meta, like none of them use 300 by 250. Like that was created when Nokia's were still around, when BlackBerry was a thing. And it's today the most traded ad format. 300 by 250, that's what drives most of it. So the ad experiences on all the winners are actually super well integrated. They're responsive, they fit in the product, it's built to work like that. And for some reason, to get the scale we wanted, we say, hey, you know what? Let's do an amount of pixels on the screen. Screens have evolved. It's still 300 by 250 up until today because that's what scales. So what we've been working on, and that's the reason we had a creative stack, is actually figuring out how, with native elements, you can build the same experiences that you would have on social media or that you would have on Amazon or anything. The idea is to say, let's actually build ad experiences that are not standard as per IAB standards in terms of display, but that you can standardize and scale nowadays with the tech stack that exists, with the technology, the capabilities that we have today to actually make that happen. And we essentially activating that through deals to make it easier, like it lets buyers through our curation platform generate their own tags and so on. And the idea there is really, hey, let's get better user experiences, and that's obviously key. I think native advertising as a
Well, it's actually
to
your point on the 300 by 250. Nick, how many clients come to Monks or any agency, knocking on your door saying, give me that display ad? None of them do that.
They're not
They're
excited
like,
about
I
it.
want CTV in the media plan, I want social in the, I want all these things. No one says, where's the display ads? Like, this media plan sucks.
That's why it gets really confusing, right, on the programmatic side.
Yeah, no, I mean, you name it. Social, it's our number one channel on our side because of the connectivity, of the first party data, of the experience. Programmatic, I mean, I'm dating myself, but it's like a 2012 type of thing that was just like, prospecting and retargeting, and it was doing its magic then, but the world has moved since then.
Almost all that was retargeting back then.
Most likely. I mean, right now I pull up my phone and I talk to my AI, right? Like all of that, it's an experience to a point of itself. So how can we integrate with those experiences that just goes beyond
The measurement is, I agree with the creative side and how it affects user experiences and whatnot. I would argue that the measurement and how messed up that is has created
100%.
perverse incentives and frankly a tragedy of the commons, that the only way the publishers can make more money is to add additional ad units, which degrades the user experience. And so
exactly
it
what we
all
got.
kind of comes back to that. And if we can fix that, I think you would struggle to find one publisher that wouldn't change their whole ad setup for one ad on the page that gave them the same amount of revenue as 15 ads on the page.
I agree 100%, but I think I do blame the agency, not you guys, and
Everyone but me.
no, but the advertiser, because I think you've been persuaded into accepting KPIs that aren't related to actual sales, and that's the issue, right? So you're decoupling the user experience from the quality from the KPI. So actually, in your average campaign, you need to have your mobile station. You have to click on the moving X 5 times before you actually, and that's clicks, and that's your averages goes up. I'm not your average, the averages of a campaign, and so you're actually creating a bad user experience to meet KPIs that are not related to revenues. So
Yeah, it's not really like we took proxies are really wrong. Look at people go for viewability or completion rate for video, and then you have like sticky video players running super small on a mobile phone with a pre-roll and go people buy it, agencies are happy. And then when you come with a legit product that doesn't force the user and you have a completion rate of 40% for a 30 seconds ad, it looks bad, but it's a much more superior product.
If I've been selling you for many years, 160% ROAS, and it's not true though, and then I come in with a better product that's better across all these areas, and I'm like, your ROAS is actually going to be, but it's real, it's 120, you won't sell anything. So it would be very difficult to sell that 100%, right?
But what's exciting is that there are now, people have been talking about it for a
That's
long
changing
time.
too, I should say. That attitude is changing.
And I think where we come from is this, look, I was with a client last week, or 2 weeks ago, and it's like, campaign's not performing well, why? It's 0.25% CTR. First of all, CTR is shit anyway. But then it's like, well, that's decent enough. No, we promise 0.5% to the client. It's like,
Why would you do that?
Well, because that's the pitch,
Yeah.
right? And then you check, it was all.
It's stunning. It tells you so much that they're actually, and you see this all the time, there are actually clients still doing everything saying, I want clicks, right? That is the most insane thing.
Yeah,
ever.
and so what that does to publishers is that actually siphons away revenue from the good place where we have fewer ads and real audiences to the MFAs that just improve the averages. Because the only thing the buyer wants is a report when the first 10 domains are legit and the 10,000 following, by number of impressions, you don't care because you don't see them, right? The averages are good, so we just need to move away. What encourages me is that people are looking more at incrementality testing and MMS.
Yeah.
Now the problem as an industry, we've not made those tools easy to use. They're expensive. You need to collect a lot of data, etc. Everything is LTA, everything is CTR, everything is stuff that you can measure online. There's no link to revenues, and that affects user experience as well as affect the CFO results. So I think my point is, we shouldn't, as marketers, we shouldn't be shy to go back in our companies and say, I actually want to prove sales value, not media KPIs, because otherwise you're pushing that conversation with your CFO next year is going to go like, what? Why do you want that? Why do you want 50% more marketing budget? What I haven't seen a correlation to media. How are you optimizing today? You're optimizing towards possibly some of the worst channels because the measurement KPIs are going to be wrong. So if we fix that, and then we can power optimization better. Actually, we can do optimization on the supply side because we're optimizing towards outcomes that matter to revenues, not outcomes and then to a bot.
I wouldn't discard clicks altogether, right? I mean, it's mostly what Google and Meta are selling, and they're doing all right. So I wouldn't really discard it altogether.
True.
I think for some use cases it does make sense. But if you're building a brand and you really want impact and you want an ad that people notice, that people remember, the click doesn't really matter.
No clicks on CTV, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So again, CTV, it's a branding channel. It's a branding channel because you can measure it. It's a fucking, I cannot avoid watching that ad. And if it's a good ad and a good show, I'll remember it.
Yeah, but it tells you a lot. The
does
clicks are
CTV
so
get
important.
credit for
Why
that?
is all the money going to CTV where there's clicks are irrelevant?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Touche.
Any other questions before he gets handled out of here?
So many. Well, find you.
Well, there's a lunch. There's lunch. There's drinks. There's. Very good.
There's fresh air. Inside.
Yeah. Anybody? Thoughts? Closing thoughts?
Well, I mean, I was going to build up on what you said. It's not just the people in this room fixing that. I think we need the brands because incentives are set by the brands. So I have worked with clients who are like, my incentive is engagement. So we need to drive engagement, which does not relate to sales. So I think we need to educate upstream as well as downstream and make sure that there's alignment between agencies, platforms, DSPs, SSPs, whatever, to make sure that we're all understanding what we're trying to do, and it's not the click, it's not the
Shannon Reed and Norm DeGraw, who you work with the geotech, she's charging way, but she's one person only. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah, I mean, look, there's those pioneers in each company, but I think we need more of that, and we need to put power behind it.
Yeah. Excellent.
I would just say, we started the conversation talking about Pretio and Google Privacy Sandbox and whatnot. Our hope is that the browsers continue to, whether it be under some privacy flag or something like that, I don't know, that off to the side, but the browsers should keep investing in advertising instead of, seeing advertising as an enemy. They should see advertising as like this engine that obviously helps to power a lot of the websites, which help the browsers stay around. But my hope is that Google decides to stay invested in the open web and sort of try and maybe solve some of these measurement problems as well. And if they can find something that works and works with other browsers, I know that they're thinking about.
I sat across from Victor Wong from Privacy Sandbox at dinner last night, and Tal was there, who runs product manager at Chrome. This is exactly what every single person is asking them.
Yeah.
He said, and every meeting, that's what they're asking for. Make Chrome be a benefit.
Yeah.
Don't screw it up
If they
for
solve
us.
the measurement, like at least some of the measurement issues.
My engineers have had several meetings with Chrome engineers, with the samples engineers, and we're crushing out what they relay as tagless measurement,
Okay.
right? So which the idea of improving the attribution
ARA.
aggregated reporting API
Yeah.
to work with third parties, because actually the browser does see every domain, and without needing to put a tag or put a pixel, because advertisers just like enough of that shit. And they actually, I think, look, you never know with Google, but the guys in pricing want to make a better product, and I think if there's no threat of removing third-party cookies, and there's no regulatory oversight as to, because they're probably going to pull out, they are going to build a better product or a better set of tools.
I hope
They might be the mothership wants to fly in 6 months. We never know. But these guys want to make a better product.
I think we have to support them.
Yeah.
By the way, like the industry kind of like laughed at it a little bit, like, haha, we told you weren't going to do it. But like, I hope that they keep making that investment, and I think we have to support them, and that's why we.
To be honest, they're the only ones looking for solutions, right? I mean, Safari, Firefox, they just turned off third-party cookies and say, you guys do whatever. So, I mean, there are a lot of initiatives that are very relevant. That can be very good signals for advertising. That can help the whole measurement part to be actually much better. Even like small use cases like frequency, whatever. So there's a lot of stuff that they can provide on the browser level. Now, it would probably be good that it doesn't just come up as a Google product.
Yeah.
So I think if they would work really from a W3C perspective.
Yeah, with that.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem. But in the end, like W3C without advertising would not even exist, and because websites would no longer be around, or at least they wouldn't have so much content.
Sorry, I got us on another.
Yeah. No, that's right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thanks. I knew you have a question.